YouTube, what's going on, guys? My name is Mike and I'm back with another video. And today it's pretty cold in New Jersey. It's probably about 50 degrees. We're in mid-April and it's time to plant some cold weather stuff. So today I'm going to give you the top 5 tips on how I like to plant my plants for the best success rate. And that includes plants in cold weather. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Okay guys, so first and foremost, I just want to mention I'm going to be referring to the Square Foot Gardening book a lot in this video. This is something I talked about in previous videos. You could find this book on Amazon down in the link below. I really recommend it. I really did enjoy reading this book. So what I'm going to be doing is planting my brassicas or my cold weather plants into my Square Foot Garden raised bed right here. So what that consists of is planting my plants very close together within a square foot for maximum yield for less work, using less space and less resources like water and soil. So let's go ahead and dive right into this. I'll show you guys how I'm going to plant, and I'm going to give you, of course, my top 5 tips. Tip number 1, before you even start planting or even thinking about planting, you're going to want to harden your plants off. And what that means is simply bringing your plants outside in the sun, in the cold air or the cool air, whatever your climate is, bring them out from inside where you started them, allow the sun, the wind, the elements to kind of hit and move and harden the plants off. And then you simply bring them back inside at nighttime, let them recover, adjust, and do it again the next day. You want to start off about an hour every day, 2 hours every day outside in the elements, bring them back inside to their safe zone or in your greenhouse where you started them, what they're used to, and then do it again for 2 hours the next day, 3, 4, until finally your plants are hardened off and they could survive a full day and night outside without giving you any signs of stress. So that's tip number 1. So what I've done is I've already hardened off these plants right here, and they are ready to go into the garden. So let's go ahead and start planting these in. Okay, so tip number 2, before we even start planting again, is you want to have an idea of where you're going to put your plants and how you're going to space them. So in my case, I'm planting them pretty tight, but even then, you need to understand which plants grow tall, which plants are finished short, which plants take a lot of space, and which plants don't. So in this case, if I kind of know what I'm planting here. I know my cabbages get pretty big, so I'm going to plant them 1 per square foot. I know my lettuces, the variety of lettuce, the butter crunch doesn't take up too much space and that you can kind of pack them in. I'll probably do 2 of those per square foot, and so on and so forth. But if you didn't know and you really wanted to learn, once again, you could refer to the Square Foot Gardening book. In the back of this book, there's a ton of really important knowledge. So I'm going to show you guys just quickly at a glance here. There's indexes of all different types of plants and vegetables that you would typically grow, and it'll tell you the family, the height, the spacing per square foot, which is very important, the season it grows in, the weeks from harvest, etc., etc. So if you haven't already checked this book out, I definitely recommend it. There's tons of charts and information about vegetables in the back of this book. Refer to that. But I've already wrote some notes down and I've done this before, so I think I know where I'm going to plant, space all these. Now, these plants here are brassicas. So what the brassicas are is they're typically colder weather plants. They kind of bolt in the summertime and go to seed, or they don't handle the heat very well, but they do really well in the cool spring weather. So with that being said, they're usually not the tallest, most vigorous plants to grow. So we're going to keep them in the front of my raised bed garden or the south-facing side, so that it gets the most amount of sun when my tomatoes are behind them, growing and towering. They don't get shaded out. So that's tip number 2, is know where you're going to place your stuff and how the plant grows and finishes at maturity. Okay guys, so tip 3 is you're going to want to kind of dampen your little starter packs here. You don't want them to be too dry and you don't want them to be too wet. So a nice moisture level is going to make it easiest for you to get these out. So what I do is I just kind of gently squeeze the bottom, and then I tip it over and I just tap it out, and it falls right out just like so. So that's kind of the third tip there, is if you keep the soil consistency nice and damp, but not too wet, not too dry, the whole little plug right here will hold together really well. And man, these little cabbage starts look really healthy. They're not root bound, but there's plenty of roots kind of making it down to the bottom and around, giving the plug a great structure. I started this little seedling right here in March on the 21st of March. So this is a 1 month old. Kind of slow growing, but it's been really chilly in the greenhouse, so that's probably why. Okay guys, so that brings me to tip number 4, and that is use a mycorrhizal inoculant if you can. So there's a little bit of a caveat with this tip. We're planting brassicas today, which are typically your cold weather crops. Brassicas don't form an association with mycorrhiza fungi. 95% of plants in nature do form an association with mycorrhiza fungi, and it's a really beneficial symbiotic association where the fungi seeks out moisture and nutrients and minerals and trades it to the plant for sugars that it creates during the photosynthesis process that the fungi can't get for itself. So they kind of trade there, and that's why mycorrhiza is really, really important to use. However, brassicas don't form the association, so we're not going to be using it for these today. However, it's very important that you do use it with all of your other garden vegetables. I'm going to leave a link down below to a little chart that'll show you which plants and vegetables do form an association with mycorrhiza and which do not. So you can check that out down in the description below. Let's get these plugs in the ground here. All right guys, so the final tip here is when you're actually planting them in, like what I'm going to be doing here, is you want to move your mulch layer out of the way, and you want to make sure that when you're planting your little plug in here, you're not covering the stem itself, the bottom of the root where the roots become to the stem. You don't want to cover that with any soil, and you don't want to cover that with any mulch. You want to keep your mulch layer away from that stem, because that'll create rot when the mulch layer gets wet, and as the plant tries to grow, it'll be stunted by being smothered kind of by soil and mulch. So when you're planting, think of a donut. Think of the center of a donut. So we do want to bring our mulch layer in. However, we don't want to let the mulch layer cover the plant or touch the stem. So keep that nice and clear, and that's going to do just fine like that. So that's my last and final tip for this video, guys, but I do have one more bonus tip for you and a little bit of bro science if you stick around. So let's go over that right now. Okay, so now that we've got all of our plants in, we only did the first 8 right here. I'm gonna get the rest of them in, but just to make this video quick for you guys, the final tip, or the bonus tip that I have, is make sure you water your plants in after you're done planting them. It's really important that you water them in to kind of bring out all the air pockets that might have happened during the transplanting process, and it's gonna give a good integration for your plant's roots into the native soil, or the raised bed soil in this case. So make sure you water your plants in. That's very, very important. Now, I promised you guys I had one little tip. It's more of like a bro science thing. I don't know if there's any backed up evidence about this, but I always like to plant my plants in the evening or on a cloudy day. And the reason being is because I think when you're transplanting plants, they're susceptible to just being in shock. Now you're really screwing them up. Imagine if someone ripped you out of your house and threw you into the street and then put a big shining sun over your head. You wouldn't like that very much, at least I wouldn't. So I always try to plant them in later in the day, after the heat of the sun, in the heat of the day, or on a cloudy day where the sun isn't going to be beaming down on these baby plants here that have just been transplanted. So don't know if it's true or if it helps anything, because technically tomorrow is going to be a sunny day too, and you're going to deal with the same stress that they would have if you planted in the morning. But just something that I've always done, a little bit of bro science, if you will. So with that, I'll leave you guys to it. Happy planting. Okay guys, that's the end of the video. I really appreciate you coming along with me on this little five tip journey. If you like this type of stuff, if you like these quick to the point videos, short and sweet, go ahead and hit the like button. If you want to see more of this type of content, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you have any questions for me about anything, or if you saw I did something wrong or something that you wouldn't like to do yourself, go ahead and leave it down in the comments below, and I'll be happy to answer any questions, concerns you guys have, or just have a conversation with you. So with that, have a nice day, and I'll see you on the next one.